Hi, everybody. Can I get your attention, please? So, how's the food? Right? We want to thank Clark. He, as he said, he enhanced the menu tonight because it was Brenda. So, outstanding job by Chef. Once again, thanks to everyone at the Crest, and again to Cape Cod 5 for sponsoring this event. Thank you very much. We'd ask you to please mute any telephones that you have, and I want to just let you know that I think for the first time we've ever done this, Falmouth Community Television is here recording the evening, which will air on FCTV and on the Chamber website. So for those folks who were unable or felt uncomfortable because of COVID to come here, they can also share in Brenda's special day. Thank you, FCTV. It gives me great pleasure to welcome next to me our chairman of the board, Janet Rocha of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Michael, and everyone for the warm welcome. Before we commence the program to honor the Citizen of the Year, I would like to take a few minutes to recognize a few people who have worked tirelessly on behalf of the Chamber. Each year, we have directors who come to the end of their 6 years serving on the board. We normally recognize the individuals in this year every year, but we were unable to do this due to COVID. I would like to recognize Patty Erickson and John Falone, who came to the end of their term in April of 2020, and Chief Edward Dunn, David Chapman, and Mark Bogosian, who came to the end of their terms in April of 2021. They have left the Chamber a better place and in tremendous condition due to their unselfish service. Please join me in thanking them for their support. As it is customary, we have a plaque for our outgoing directors. Unfortunately, several of our past directors were unable to be with us this evening. However, Patty Erickson and Chief Edward Dunn are here. Please come up to receive your plaques.
She'll give it to you.
Okay.
Okay. The one we bring them right up. Yep. Yep. Patty, come on. Here we go. Chief, come on in.
Wait, I don't want to.
Okay. There we go. How's that?
Which way are we
I
looking?
don't know, which way are we looking?
We're going
over here?
Moral direct everything. No problem.
More is the director.
Great. Okay.
I know. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, wait. Wait. One more thing. Patty.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you all again for your support. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the invocation. Tonight, offering the invocation is Reverend Nell Fields of the Wacoit Congregational Church. Welcome, Nell.
Hey,
Reverend Nell.
as you are.
This is going to be really long. Brenda, I am so honored to be here to lead everybody in a word of prayer. So join me in the spirit of prayer. God of many names, you saw this evening coming. You saw this evening when we would collect, break bread, and celebrate. An evening when we would celebrate community, celebrate this long-awaited gathering, and celebrate the one who has done so much for others, our friend, our hero, our inspiration, Brenda Swain. We thank you for all these good gifts, for blessed are you, O God, who brings forth bread from the earth and at whose word all came to be. Bless all who are gathered here. May we be inspired by what we see and hear so that we too may continue to respond to your call to live, love, changing lives. We ask all of this in the name of all that is holy, all that is light, all that is good. Amen.
We'd like to take an opportunity to warmly welcome the following dignitaries who have taken time to come and honor Brenda. Massachusetts State Representative Dylan Fernandes is with us. Falmouth Board of Selectmen Chair Doug Brown. Falmouth Select Board Member Anjali Scott Price. Falmouth Town Manager Julian Suso. And Falmouth Police Chief Edward Dunn. It's now time for why we're here, which is the award presentation, but we have a couple of steps when we do that. First thing we'd like to do is invite our elected officials to the lectern, so I'd ask Dylan, Doug, and Anjali to please come on up and share the lectern with Janet and myself.
The Falmouth Chamber of Commerce annually acknowledges and pays tribute to a citizen who has made a positive and lasting impact on the community through his or her participation in a broad scope of activities and whose commitment to the town has been demonstrated by many years of service beyond his or her profession. The recipient should have participated in a broad scope of activities over the course of more than a year. This is not an award for a single activity, no matter how well it was executed. As you know, tonight we celebrate an outstanding citizen who over time has exemplified the very attributes we seek to honor. A person well known to many for her professional accomplishments and widespread contributions to the betterment of society. She is a model citizen, admired and esteemed for successfully balancing her devotion to family with years of professional integrity and tireless civic participation, helping people along the way, in many cases quietly and without fanfare or recognition. Please welcome to the lectern our Outstanding Citizen of the Year, Brenda Swain. Tonight, I am very proud to speak for Falmouth Chamber Board of Directors who are presenting this award. Brenda Brooke Swain grew up in a household where the example for community service started at a very young age. Her parents, Harold and Linda Furman, modeled volunteerism and inspired Brenda's own predisposition for helping others. Brenda's distinguished career on the Upper Cape began in the 1980s at Cape Cod Child Development as director of the Falmouth Preschool, and then as the Cape-wide Head Start director. Her career continued into the 90s while she was raising her children, Becky, Andy, Jesse, and Peter, when she served as a director of educational programs at the Cape Cod Children's Museum. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Brenda served for 7 years in the Massachusetts Department of Education-funded program, Young Children First. In 2002, she was selected by a committee of board members, volunteers, and clients to serve as the executive director of the Falmouth Service Center, where she has worked tirelessly for nearly 2 decades with the support from her family, including and especially her loving husband, Steve. Brenda's continuing service to this community includes working with organizations such as the Samaritans, the Falmouth Hospital Women's Healthcare Task Force, the Leadership Council to End Homelessness, the Audible Local Ledger, Falmouth Town Meeting member, the Falmouth Human Services Committee, the Barnstable County Health and Human Services Advisory Board, co-chairing the Cape Cod Hunger Network, and 3 terms on the Falmouth Council of Aging Board, which included working on developing the new senior center. As always, reflected in Brenda's work and service are her values: leading from the heart and setting the example for others, feeling compassion and daring to dream, sharing her dreams and bringing others along, creating communities within communities and individuals and agencies, nurturing a culture of friendship, respect, support, inclusiveness, and love, and erring always on the side of generosity. In fulfilling her dreams, she compels each of us in this room tonight, as only Brenda can, to embrace her values, to help her, and then together work tirelessly to turn that vision into our shared reality. What follows are just a few examples from those who nominated Brenda as Citizen of the Year. Brenda looked into the eyes of children and saw their parents, grandparents, and guardians wondering how to meet the challenges to start another school year with a myriad of costs so that their children would not seem as different, and encourage them to participate in Fresh Start. Brenda met with military families who defend our country and yet experience real vulnerability in feeding their children, and convinced those at Joint Base Cape Cod to support FSC's Fresh Markets, serving hundreds of service members and their families twice each month on the base. Brenda saw the value of eating nutritiously and doing so in a community setting where, with others for all ages, stages, and circumstances. So she invited us to come together around common tables with the help of the faith community. Brenda heard the stories and saw the need for support of widows, widowers, retirees, and the elderly, and she invited them to serve as volunteers where their circle of friends and sources of support could expand and flourish as they engaged in meaningful work. Brenda understood the health challenges facing the elderly and collaborated with healthcare professionals, nutrition educators, and granting agencies to develop, fund, and host a weekly program to provide regular monitoring of blood pressure and blood sugar levels, as well as healthy food choices to those with hypertension or diabetes. Brenda recognized the anxiety of families admitting the need to visit a food pantry, and partnered with the Falmouth Public Schools to hold mobile markets and cafeterias and the gymnasiums so families and children could shop together, learn about healthy cooking, and feel dignity and respect. Brenda felt and saw the stress of families at the holidays, expanded on the vision of a toy store and local food market, called on the community to help, and welcomed hundreds of clients through the doors to choose their gifts for their children and to pick up their turkeys and all of the fixings for the holiday season. Brenda built sustainable programs to serve neighbors in need, including most recently an expanded thrift shop that not only provides an opportunity for a sustainable revenue stream in support of FSC client families, but also opportunities for increased volunteerism and repurposing of an abundance of donated goods in the Falmouth community. Beyond the programs and her sensitivity to meet the needs of community, Brenda created a team of caring, compassionate, and devoted colleagues and volunteers, all of whom have served as ambassadors and the many faces of the Falmouth Service Center, with Brenda as its sole support of its mission: to ease stress, reduce hunger, and improve the quality of life for our neighbors in need. Brenda, your accomplishments are remarkable. It is my honor to present you our Outstanding Citizen of the Year Award on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. Now I would like to invite our elected officials to honor our Citizen of the Year. Let me step over there.
There you go, Brenda. This is for you. Anjali and Julie.
I'm joined tonight by Anjali Scott Price and Julian Suso, our town manager. I'm Doug Brown. I'm your local elected select board chair. And I'm really honored to be here to give this proclamation to Brenda. I've been one of her Christmas elves for several years. And Brenda doesn't come in and tell us what to do. She showed us the first year what she needed, and she just quietly leads by example. She's busy, she's working, she's doing her stuff. She checks on us once in a while, but she shows us how to do it, and we just do it, and it's the kind of leadership that you really need to make these things happen. And to take a little food pantry and build it into the program that it is, it's been incredible, so I really thank you. So on behalf of the Falmouth Select Board, this is the Chamber of Commerce Outstanding Citizen of the Year for 2021 and possibly 2020 as well. Whereas the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce annually acknowledges and pays tribute to a citizen of the town of Falmouth who has made a lasting positive impact on the community through participation in a broad scope of activities and whose commitment to the town has been demonstrated by many years of service beyond his or her profession. And whereas Brenda Swain is an exceptional citizen of the town of Falmouth, Massachusetts, and New England, well known to all for her professional accomplishments, widespread contributions to the betterment of society. And whereas Brenda Swain is a model citizen, admired and esteemed for successfully balancing her devotion to family with years of integrity, tireless civic participation, and commitment to community progress. And whereas Brenda Swain quietly works to build a better town, to build the physical and moral fiber of our youngsters, to man the action boards and committees so vital to our interests, to preserve Falmouth open space and protect the values and rich character of Falmouth, Cape Cod. And whereas Brenda Swain's many accomplishments and contributions, singularly and collectively, are memorialized in the minds of those she has touched and chronicled on the pages of organizations across this town, and she continues to make a difference in the town of Falmouth. We do herein declare that this citizen is worthy of high praise and great recognition. And now, therefore, we, Douglas C. Brown, Nancy R. Taylor, Samuel H. Patterson, Megan English Braggett, and Anjali Scott Price, as Select Board of the town of Falmouth, by the authority vested in us, do proclaim Brenda Swain, Falmouth 2021 Outstanding Citizen of the Year. Congratulations, Brenda. This is certainly well-deserved.
Well, that's one of the biggest elves I've ever seen. So I'm Dylan Fernandes. I'm the state rep for Falmouth and the Islands. Hometown is Falmouth, and it's just a pleasure to present this State House citation to Brenda this evening. And I like to remind folks, so the Massachusetts legislature is the oldest constitutional democracy in the world, and so we brought this from them. I don't know that John Adams envisioned us telling our colleagues to unmute themselves on Zoom during policy discussions, but that's the type of year it's been. And it's been a really hard year for a lot of people in town. A lot of people have been really struggling, and but they've been in good hands in the town of Falmouth because of Brenda, and because of the incredible work of her and her team at the Falmouth Service Center to help literally tens of thousands of people get the food support they need, get the financial security that they need, and at such a time where people were so disconnected, to have a feeling of home and community through that connection at the Falmouth Service Center. It's really remarkable work, and so it's just a pleasure to be able to honor you with this State House citation. And so as this reads, I won't read the whole thing, but the highlight is Brenda Swain, in recognition of your being named the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year, and in recognition of your decades of tireless dedication to the Falmouth community. So congratulations.
Last week, we met with Congressman Bill Keating, who's a big supporter of Falmouth, who was here for the Falmouth Police Department's 100th anniversary. And regrettably, he's not in district. He's down in D.C. and was unable to be here tonight. But he wanted to pass along from the House of Representatives a congressional record. And I won't read the whole thing either because it goes into Madam Speaker. But he rose in recognition of Brenda Swain, and it's right here in writing. And this is sincere and true. He wanted me specifically to tell you how much he appreciates all you do, and it's heartbreaking for him to not be here tonight. So, congratulations. And now it's Brenda's turn. Here you go. You need anything? Good? Okay.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I made it 18 font, but I still need my glasses. We're here. So, COVID has changed our world. We have lost many dear ones, and our community will forever be changed. So let's please just take a moment to think of those who may not be here because they were lost, or they're afraid, or for some reason COVID has impacted them in a way that they just couldn't be here. So let's just take a minute to think about those people. Many people contacted me and told me that for health and safety reasons, they just wouldn't be able to come. And I told them, I really understand. It's a little daunting after you've been holed up in your living room watching Food Network for a year and a half to come out and be in a group this size. And not everybody's wearing masks, and there's a buffet, and it's a challenge. So for those people who didn't come, I told them I totally get it. And for those of you who did come, I really appreciate your bravery because I know it may have been difficult, and I appreciate your show of support. Now go out and get your booster shot and wear your masks. So most of my speech is thank yous. I came to Falmouth in 1983. Straight out of grad school. I came for a job interview. I jumped on a bus from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and was picked up at the bus by a cab driver. Went for an interview at the preschool of Cape Cod Child Development. Left, went back to grad school, was called and told I got the job. So in May of 1983, I came back, got off the bus, and the cab driver said, "Congratulations on getting the job." And I said to myself, wow, Falmouth is quite a community. My husband, Steve, and I went to Maine many years later, and I was in a novelty shop, and I found this little plaque that said, "I'm so glad I live here because if I forget what I'm doing, somebody will remember." So I don't usually call people out, but today, hey, I don't work for anybody anymore. And if I forget somebody, they'll probably forgive me. So I decided it was important to call out some of my mentors, and there are many of them. Some of them you'll know, some of them you won't, but it's important for me to do this. So a lot of this was already said in the speech that Janet gave, but my mom and dad were always very important to me. As I was growing up, I watched them often leaving the house to go be in charge of things at our temple or in charge of the PTO or whatever they were doing in the community in which they were very involved. So I grew up in an environment where that was what we did. And often my brother Mark and I went with them. When I came to work for Cape Cod Child Development Program, I was only 23. And I learned a lot about things in books, but I didn't know a lot about what to do in real life. And I was faced with a lot of challenging families who had a lot of difficult situations. And Peter Kerwin, who at the time was the Human Services Director, came over the first week that I was the director of the preschool and said, if I ever needed his help, he would always be there for me. Peter, how many people knew Peter? Yeah, you're very lucky people. He was an amazing, amazing man. I miss him every day. I learned compassion from Peter. Walter Carlson, who knew Walter? Walter owned Cape Cod Printing, which is still in existence. And town meeting, his son does all of the audiovisual for that, and it's a great family. But Walter, his shop used to be on Main Street in Falmouth, and when I worked at the preschool, we had no copy machine. So once a week, I would go over to his Cape Cod Printing, and he'd sit me down, give me a cup of coffee and a donut, and say, okay, what are your troubles this week? And he would listen to me every week for years and years. He was such an amazing man. I was able, and I've loved all my jobs. I've been so lucky in whatever I did. But we created an organization called Young Children First and the Coalition for Children. And there were two women who were in charge of that group, Paula Mealy and Maureen Crowley. And they were the strongest, most vocal, concerned people for families and children. And I watched them year after year and what they did for the community, and I always inspired to be like them. And all of the centers and family child care providers that I met and worked with, those women and men inspired me day in and day out. When I was lucky enough to get the job at Falmouth Service Center, and Hand in Hand, the person who was in charge of the board at the time was Bob Murray. Who knew Bob Murray? So if you knew Bob Murray, you knew you needed to do what he said. But you also knew he was always there and always had your back. So I often would be in work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the only other person that was up and at work at that time was Bob. So I would go over and sit and talk to him, or he would come over and sit and talk to me, and whenever I had a problem, he was always there for me. He was an amazing person. Elias Lieberman, my rabbi, and also a member of the board of the service center at the time that I was hired, is continually an inspiration to me. He felt really badly he couldn't be here tonight, but I totally understand why he wasn't. And Nell told me she talked to him and that he sent his love and good wishes to all of us. Betsy Dowd was one of my board chairs. She was a volunteer, sort of started in the old building before we moved into the new building. And she was board chair for 4 years and taught me a lot about leadership and about caring and about what Doug was saying. You show them how to do it and just let them do it. She was very good at helping me understand that. Sam LaRusso, a lot of people know Sam, and his daughter Laura. Sam also would drive into the service center at 6 o'clock in the morning and stop in and talk to me and make sure I was doing okay. And his daughter Laura speaks from the heart. I think she was the last Citizen of the Year.
Yeah. Correct, yeah.
Just an amazing person who was on our board for several years, and I was lucky enough to learn from both of them. Debbie and Johnny Netto. Who knows Debbie and Johnny? They're over there. Yeah. Everybody knows Debbie and Johnny. All Debbie always wants to do is feed the people. So I always listened when she said that. Judy Fenwick. She has quiet, who knows Judy? jeez. With her quiet fortitude and ensuring that my grammar was always correct, she kept me in line and made sure that I always had the support I needed. Karen Delaney. She's in the back over there. I was always the person who would talk about, we need to do this, and just say, let's do it. And then Karen was always the person who would figure out how we would do what I would say. She was, and still is, an amazing person who is able to put together big ideas into reality. And that's why, even though I can't be there anymore, I feel as though the Service Center is still an amazing asset to this community because of Karen's leadership. Sharon Howard, the volunteer coordinator at the Service Center. She worked for, how many years? 38, Sharon, at Wheaton, sorry. Started with a W. Wheaton. And she changed that place into an amazing community. She did the same thing to the Service Center and to this town. And for me, she would always say, there's no job too big and no job too small. And that's what a good leader does. And I learned that every day watching Sharon. And I have to call her out for, she took all the seating arrangements for all the Service Center, and it was a daunting task, especially just my family tables. Every other day they changed. So I really appreciate all the work she put into that, along with Susan Zavala from the Chamber. Craziness. I'm telling you, it was crazy. And now I've kind of landed in a new home. Falmouth Senior Center. I guess I like something about FSCs. And I've learned from Jim Vieira what patience means. Because there were a lot of times over the last 10 or 12 years that I was losing my patience. And Jim never once lost his patience. He was always just going forward, knowing that we would someday have a building. And here we are, we have a building. And Jill Irving Bishop, who is my new boss. She has vibrant energy and the wherewithal to get anything done that needs to be done. All these people and the volunteers and the clients at all of these places are just what make Falmouth a special place. I'm just one person. I'm surrounded by citizens of the year. All of you every day do what it takes to make Falmouth this special community. And all those mentors I mentioned, they were all good listeners. And that's really what somebody gifts to somebody else, is being able to just sit and listen. And I talk a lot. So from those mentors, I learned that sometimes it's important to zip your lip and listen to what somebody else has to say. Now I'd just like to thank the community builders, town and state officials and volunteers who serve on committees throughout governmental departments, and all my fellow town meeting members, educators from the crossing guards to the administrators and everybody in between, chamber administrators, Michael and Maura and Susan and all their volunteers, and the members, small and large business owners, self-employed, and the employees, those service workers among us who sometimes seem to be invisible, but without them, we wouldn't be able to do anything. We know this past year how difficult it's been when small businesses and large businesses can't get the staff they need because of this pandemic. It's been very challenging, so especially those service workers. Nonprofit leaders, staff, and thousands of volunteers. Faith leaders and those who seek every day to bring social justice to our community and world. Neighbors, those who have, those who give, and those who receive. And anyone else I inadvertently forgot to mention, okay? I didn't mean it. I love all of you, and you're all very important to me. And then a thank you to my closest connections. When I needed to retire because of illness, I was inundated with cards meals. My family never ate so well. They got really spoiled. Phone calls, spirit lifters, and those of you who nominated me, I was presented with a book of all those nominations. And at the time, I was not well, and I can't even begin to tell you how much reading those meant to me. Dr. Aviles and his angels sitting right over there. Yay for them. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to be the Citizen of the Year for 2 years. Lifelong friends. 3 people are here tonight who were in my wedding 35 years ago. That's pretty lucky. My BFBs. So I'm not going to tell you what BFB stands for because they said I was an upstanding citizen. But Anne and Beth and Betts and Carr and my mom, they know what BFB stands for, and they are darn good at it. My brother and my nephew and my cousins, who all came from across the United States to be here with me today, and my friends, I really appreciate it. My adult children, they'll always be my babies, but they are adults now. 3 out of 4 of them are here, and their partners, and my beloved grandchildren. I have 9 of them. They range in age from 3 weeks old, Peter's the one sleeping over there, my son, to 19. My mom, who we are blessed to have live with us, she inspires me every day. And I think about my dad of blessed memory, who was my biggest fan. And then, of course, I can't leave out my husband, Stephen Oliver Swain, who's my soulmate, my balance, and my forever partner. So now the speech. That was just the thank yous. So, I'm sorry, I know, I got it for 2 years, so I have a little extra time. So at Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, Elias, our rabbi, gave a sermon on the attitude of gratitude. And it was like he was just speaking to me. Because if you know me, I'm always trying to look at the world as the glass is half full. And to focus on what is right in life. And to do this by taking actions in support of people around you, erring on the side of generosity. Those kinds of actions make you a better person and make the community a better person, a better place to be. I encourage you to be the best you can be and shine that little light of yours, because it will make you feel better and it will just brighten our community even more. And find the work in the world that makes you feel like you've never had to work a day in your life. I was blessed. That's how my work always was. I want to talk a little bit about kindness. So my friend Carr always says, in this world, if you can be anything, be kind. At volunteer trainings, I used to talk about, and this has been so hard during COVID, how your smile, when somebody would come in for food, can turn somebody's life around. So now everyone's wearing a mask. So I'm encouraging you to smile with your eyes, because you can do that. If you're smiling, you'll see it in your eyes. And I had this amazing volunteer. Her name was Nancy Boston. She was a great lady. She volunteered for many, many years. And she answered the phone. And some days, although Nancy was an amazing person, she sounded like the biggest grump you'd ever hear in the world. So I said to Nancy, you know what, Nancy, if you answer the phone and you smile, people will hear the smile in your voice. So I'd go out to meetings or something, and I'd call when Nancy was on shift. And after a while, you heard the smile in Nancy's voice. And we would always joke with each other about that. The last thing I really want to talk about is balance. They talked in the speech about how I did a really good job about balancing my family and my work and my volunteer efforts, but I really don't think I did. When I got sick, it made me realize that I had taken for granted my family and the time that I didn't spend with them because I was at work or doing other things. It doesn't mean that I didn't love my work and everything else that I did, but I really encourage you to strive to balance your work and your volunteer and your family, because it matters. It's not going to matter 100 years from now if you were at work at 6 o'clock in the morning, but it might matter that you missed your child's baseball game. So I think you just really need to think about it. And also, this is a Chamber of Commerce dinner, so I don't want to get in trouble. But for businesses, if you're a boss and you never take your vacation, and you know, if you're sick, you go to work, that's not a good example for your employees. So you'll have to set a good example and encourage people to use their vacation time, to enjoy their families. They'll be better employees for you. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, and there are a lot of people in the room that I don't know, there's a couple places you can find me. So I'm at the Falmouth Senior Center a lot now. I'm either volunteering in the cafe, or in the reception area in the front, or on an exercise mat in one of the classes. But if I'm not at the Senior Center, I'm helping volunteer for my son Andy's food truck, the filling station. Yay, Andy! And he's often at the Cape Cod Winery. We're going to be there several times in October. So just follow me on Facebook and you'll find out when to find me there. Thank you for joining me here tonight. COVID kept us apart for 1.5 years. The huggers among us have had a very challenging time. Please be safe, be love and give love, and appreciate each and every day. Thank you.
That was pretty amazing, Brenda, just like you had said. Now, I feel blessed because when I moved to Falmouth, Brenda was one of the first people that I got to meet and work with in my role when I was working part-time at the Chamber, and Jay Zavala was president of the Chamber. And again, with your vision, I know that you were a big influence on Jay as well in really turning the Chamber more toward a community-focused organization, which we are today. A lot of that has to do with you and volunteerism. So thank you for all you've done for us. And I love what you had to say about the businesses and leadership, because that's really very true. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for Cape Cod 5 for sponsoring the event. Crest, outstanding, as you always do. Always. A theme that Brenda talked about over and over again, what I like to take 1 second, just recognize one table that's here, because volunteerism that's so important in the community, things don't happen. And we live in a community where people are involved and volunteer. I can tell you that although I am the luckiest person in the world to have Maura and Susan on my team, we've been together for 12 years, 10 years, something like that. We couldn't do it without our volunteers, who are all here at that table. But I'd like you to stand up. To follow Brenda's model and help us provide service to the community. And I know some of them are very involved in the Falmouth Service Center, thanks to you. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for that wonderful speech. I don't know if people get dessert yet already. I think there's some out there. But feel free to mingle and come over and say hello to Brenda, and that will conclude the ceremony, and thank you so much for coming out. Everybody be safe.
So it's wonderful to be here with so many amazing community members and family members and friends to celebrate this great community of Falmouth. And I'm honored to be the Citizen of the Year, but it's really all about everybody in this room. That's what makes this town special.